welcome back to CAFC, the Charlton all-time Fantasy 11 club. I'm your host, Sam Wyatt, and this is a big one, guys. I'm so excited with the guest. Apologies for the hair. It's a bit fluffy, isn't it? I wasn't planning on recording this today, but my God, after last night, we go up to Derby, win 2-1, our first win in 16 games. I mean, I was bounced off the wall. What a game. Anderson, instant Charlton legends. You've got Conor Coventry second half, not so good in the first half. Second half was unbelievable. Nathan Jones looks like he's got us playing like bloody Brazil. We were fantastic. It was such a good game. I'm very jealous of all the guys who got to go up and see that in the flesh. It was incredible. But that isn't what this podcast, this video is all about. This is about the good old times. When you look at it, I mean, we're still fifth bottom. That's still 1 in 16 wins. I mean, I'm loving it. It's great. What a great win. But when you look at what we're looking at, Mark Kinsella, bloody Darren Bent, Clive Mendonca, playoff finals. I mean, it's still a bit shit at the moment, isn't it? Sorry to bring everyone down, but this is a fantastic episode with an amazing supporter and such a big part of the club for the last probably, I think it was over 10 years. It's Mr. Olly Groome. And it goes on for so long, we've had to split it into 2 parts. So hope you enjoy them. This first part, we're going into some of the stories because, my God, I just sat there listening to Ollie. Like, just tell me everything, Ollie. Just tell me all about it. What are those trips like when you get to go away with the players? What is it like drinking with the players? These people who are our heroes, and what's it like actually meeting them? What was it like when you went and met Clive Mendonca in his house? Oh, my God. I could have talked to him forever. I'd love to talk to him again. Yeah, like I said, half the time I was just sitting there listening. So yeah, hope you enjoy it, guys. It's a fantastic chat with Ollie. It goes over 2 episodes, like I said, and this is technically the last episode. This is the last one we're doing of series 1. We have started already getting people booked in for series 2. Some big, exciting people coming up. Also, after this last episode, this 2-parter, I'll be going through the most chosen players and announcing the winner of series 1's most chosen player. And it's I'll get into that more when we get round to it. But fantastic game yesterday, lovely and things that have happened in the meantime. I mean, this has been incredible. I know that this is the last episode, so it's amazing to see, like, so many of you have written in saying how much you're enjoying it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I do read all the messages, don't necessarily get back to every one of you, but yeah, fantastic support for the channel. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. We are going to keep it going for series 2. Also, got to, like, the people I've met. I mean, I've been on the Charlton Chronicles with Joshua Wilcox, had a massive shout out on Tyler Rowlandson's channel, which was huge, and had a massive shout out on Tyler Rowlandson's channel. Also, I got to be on bloody Charlton Live. That was amazing. Sitting there with Louis, Ben, and Nathan. Oh, it was great. Yeah, massive shout out. That everyone's been. What I love about it is I didn't know what was going to. I thought I was going to start this and go. Everyone's like, "Oh, he's coming into our area. We're the Charlton pick." But everyone, to a person, has been so supportive. It's been so lovely. And yeah, long may it continue. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. Like and subscribe, like I tell you to do. But enjoy it. This is the fantastic Mr. Olly Groome. Hello and welcome back to CAFC, the Charlton all-time Fantasy 11. This is the safe space, guys. We're recording this the day before we play Lincoln, a couple of days after we played Reading and lost 2-0. But I'm sure Jones is going to save us. It will be fine. We won't get relegated, of course we won't. But this isn't the place to talk about that. This is the safe space. This is times for the good old days, nostalgia, retro cups, retro shirts. That's what we want to talk about. So my guest today, I'm very, very excited to bring him on because he's kind of been the heart of it for the last 10, 12 years, I think it is. And what we've been seeing in the communications from the club and all that sort of thing. Fascinating guy to get into. Really looking forward to bringing him in. It is the wonderful, the missed and now returning conqueror. It is Mr. Olly Groome. How are you, sir?
Hi, Sam. Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Still recovering from Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, as you say, Lincoln tomorrow. So hopefully, by the time people see this, we've got more of a smile on our faces.
It'd be nice. I mean, we've been pretty miserable for quite a while, and I'll be honest, it kind of coincided with you going away. I mean, obviously, you just took all the luck we were having.
Well, it wasn't like it was a great time the previous 10 years anyway, to be honest, apart from that one season, you know, when we went up. But
well, yeah, when you were bouncing around on the pitch holding up the trophy, I remember that.
Yeah, good memories. But I think yeah, it was weird last year, really, because obviously I sort of going away, I had to sort of do my best to try and not pay attention to. Well, I knew everything that was going on, but I didn't watch a single game. The first game I'd actually watched since I left was the Cray Valley replay on TV, because by that point I sort of knew I was on my way back. So it was sort of the first time to sort of bring myself to do it, because it was tough. You know, it was difficult to sort of, I had to remove myself emotionally because it was quite difficult, you know. But
I can imagine. I imagine it was. I mean, I don't want to make you cry so early on. So let's start with the good stuff. How did you get into it? I've gone through. I've done a little bit of research, but where did you sort of come from? How did you get involved? And were you a Charlton fan first, and then?
Yeah. I mean, but I guess what do you want to go? Should I get into my fandom? I guess first. So yeah, lifetime supporter. Fourth generation. My great granddad was one of those that went to Millwall one week, Charlton the next.
Wow.
Which I think was a really common thing back then. Sort of in the 30s or whatever, 20s, 30s.
It was just whoever was playing at home, wasn't it? They just
exactly. That was quite a common thing. And luckily, he brought my great uncle to the Valley for the first time. So that's what stuck. So my great uncle Charlie, he's still going. He's 90. I think he just turned 96, if not 97, in December.
And is he saying this is the worst we've ever been as well?
Well, probably. Well, he's not seen. Well, because of his age, since lockdown, basically, he was still coming down in his 90s from Dover every single game. My uncle would from Dover, yeah. But since lockdown and stuff like that, he's not. You know, he's in a position where he finds it too difficult now. But it's his fault, really, that we're all in this Charlton sort of loving that we have in our family. It's all from my mum's side as well, rather than my dad's, which I guess is quite unusual. My dad's from Bournemouth.
Right.
He played in the youth team down there. He was in the same team as Steve Gritt, funnily enough. So obviously he moved to London, met my mum, and my mum grew up in Bexley Heath, so she's from that sort of area. And yeah, that's where it all came from. And then my great uncle took my uncle, and then my uncle took me. So it's sort of uncles.
Nice. So sliding doors moment. You could have been following Bournemouth in the Premiership if it hadn't been.
Well, no, I wouldn't have done that. But but yeah, my dad was always encouraged the Charlton stuff, and he'd say Charlton were a second side. You know, obviously we're living down here. So my mum was really on the whole. I think I was 6 years old the first game against Ipswich Town, 95 it was. We lost 2-0. I think it's a rite of passage, though. I think pretty much everyone I speak to, even that time when things were not too bad, you know, in the old Division 1, you know, first division, everyone I speak to lost their first game. But we got in the playoffs that year, but lost to Palace. So it was a baptism of fire, if you like, that first season. But he fell in love with it immediately, you know. And then that was it. Didn't look back. Didn't have a season ticket till the first season in the Prem, sort of 98, 99, because I sort of didn't need one before. I just came with my uncle, my cousins, and it'd be my two uncles, 3 or 4 of my cousins coming to every game in the West Stand, and that sort of went on until I worked for the club, basically. So
amazing. So so I know you were a news shopper for a little while, weren't you? Before you got
So I did journalism at university. Sort of graduated in 2009, and when I was at uni, I did doing that course. It was never about sports so much. It was a general journalism course, and then I wanted to sort of get into probably the tabloid journalism stuff, really. And I did a work placement in News of the World when I graduated. Obviously, they've defunct now for a number of different reasons, and it was just before that phone, you know, hacking scandal stuff. And that's what really made me sort of go, I don't want to do this sort of journalism. This isn't what I was sort of helping out on the features desk, and I saw some pretty horrendous conversations and phone calls and stuff going on. Even then, it didn't interest me. It was sort of a bit seedy.
But that obviously prepared you for all the ESI.
Good practice. But yeah, so I was in a position where I still want to do the journalism stuff. In that time, I was still living at home, so I was in a position where I could sort of do a bit of work experience here and there. And in between, I was doing a bit of temping up in London. I was temping at the MDU, Medical Defence Union, so medical insurance basically. did that for a few months, and then that turned into 2.5 years. And then sort of midway through that, I was thinking, look, if I don't do what I want to do and get out there and just chance myself and start working, doing some more freelance stuff for free, getting bylines and stuff, then I'm going to be stuck here forever. So that's what I did. After 2.5 years, I just sort of said, right, handing my resignation. I'd been doing a little bit with the New Shopper in between that, with Bromley first, actually, because I'd go down and watch Bromley when it didn't clash with Charlton. And Paul Green, who was the sports editor at the New Shopper at the time, he sort of knew I was going down to Bromley just from Twitter and stuff like that. So he messaged me one night saying, do you want to go and interview Mark Goldberg after the game, who was the manager at the time at Bromley? So I said, yeah, no problem. That was my first byline. Doing that, but I skipped a bit actually. Before that, I was doing Charlton Live with pre Louis Mendes. So when it was the radio, it was an online radio show, and we used to host it through the old CAFC player, which sort of predates Charlton TV and Valley Pass and iFollow and all the rest of it. And that was so Terry Smith was involved in that. Dave Lockwood, who's obviously the old pitch side announcer. Pete Finch, who used to commentate with Terry. So I got ingrained in that little group. Was on the original Charlton Live, which was, well, the original was sort of, it came back. It was the sort of second coming of Charlton Live back then. I think that was about 2010, something like that. And yeah, I just got to know the media guys, everyone in the press room through that. Really, that's actually where I met Paul Green and where that first New Shopper sort of chat came. So yeah, so Matt Wright was the head of comms at the time. He'd been there by the time he left, he'd been there for 15 years or so as a head of comms. And then I just sort of made a nuisance of myself. I just sort of offered to help. So the handbook, which we do every season, obviously the first program of the year, which has got all the stats and facts and profiles of all the players. Again, that's a rite of passage for any work experience that ever comes through the doors at Charlton. You start working on that. Matt sort of liked what I was doing, so yeah, and he resigned that summer, and then they kind of needed me, so that's when they started sort of paying me freelance stuff to come in a few days a week. And then Gary Haynes, who was part of the team at the time, he also resigned a couple of months into the season, and then I was offered the permanent job. So it was me, Jimmy Stone, and Ian Liddell at the time as the sort of free man media team. And then over the next couple of years, they sort of disappeared as well, and it ended up just being me. So there's a common denominator there, Ollie. I don't want to bring it up, but it seems like you get into places and other people leave pretty quick. Yeah, maybe I've got to do with it. But I think, yeah, it was at that time. Obviously, Matt is a big Charlton fan, and you know he'd been doing it for so long from the Premier League days, and sort of he'd done enough really, and wanted to move on. And yeah, Gary and Jimmy, obviously a big Charlton fan, and it was a tough time. That was when Roland sort of came in at that time, and that's when stuff started getting a little bit difficult. Yeah, I was still sort of, you know, wet behind the ears, if you like. So I just loved the club, and it was just a case of just digging my heels in really and seeing what I could do to keep helping and keep doing what I could for the love of the club. But yeah, that went on really. It was various different ownerships, as you know, after that, and it's the same story. But we could speak for hours on that stuff. But
that's what we're here for. I mean, it's fascinating because obviously as a fan, you know, I was aware of you. I was seeing you doing these interviews, and especially around the playoff final stuff, you seem to be so ingrained in the team. And I think you even went on the away trip they had after that. So what's it like when you've grown up as a Charlton fan and suddenly every day you're working with sort of your heroes, I guess? Well, what's that like on a day-to-day basis?
Right. Oh, it was a pleasure, really. Like, especially at first, you know, it was that my first season sort of working properly. You know, it's the back end of that Chris Powell team, that promotion team. So it's all those guys, and it was potentially the best group I ever worked with when we were there. And I was there. And it's just great. I mean, also, obviously, we're going to go through the sort of my best 11, like pretty much all of them, I think, bar one, I worked with in some way or interviewed or did something. And that was the great stuff. Like meeting Clive Mendonca, going to his house. We'll talk about that when we get to him. Spoilers. Stuff like that is just like an incredible privilege, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, I can imagine, and especially, yeah, like you said, we've come on to Clive Mendonca. You've kind of ruined it, but there we go. You've killed
Everyone, let's be honest.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, some of these youngsters who only want to pick people post 2016, you want to go, have you seen him? Have you actually seen him? Oh yeah, we all know Taylor was good, but look what he did to us. But no, Clive Mendonca, I mean, yeah, like I said, we'll get into it later, but such an elusive character, someone who everyone's spoken about. Why isn't, you know, could he be involved in the club still? He obviously he's got a job for life. He'd never have to pay for a beer here. I mean, what's that like meeting someone? I mean, I've had a very brief interaction with him when I was about 7, and bumped into him when we went out for dinner. He was lovely then. I imagine it's just the same, but do you get a sort of insight into, is he just interesting?
He was fascinating, really, because again, he was my hero as a kid. And again, I don't know how much this will cover when we get to it. We'll probably cover it now, but he was the one in the playground that I wanted to be and play like, and one off celebrating like. So he was like the golden goose, the sort of prized asset to try and get an interview with, because he was elusive and because he was so hard to get hold of. So I tried the first couple of years I was in that role, editing the program and stuff like that. I wanted that interview with Clive Mendonca, and I couldn't get hold of him. Keith Peacock was the man to go through to get the contact for everyone. He's got everyone in his phone book from, you know, the 60s to now. He said Clive hasn't got his own phone. He's very much set in his ways, hasn't got his own mobile phone, but he did have a number for his wife. Okay. So I actually had to go for his wife to finally get hold. It took months. It took months to actually nail him down. And in the end, he sort of agreed in principle to do an interview over the phone, which I was buzzing about. And then it came to a day and I wasn't getting an answer. And then finally I phoned, and his wife picked up, and he said, "Oh, funnily enough, I'm just parking up at Tesco's. I'm about to go in. So Clive can stay in the car and do the interview." And you could tell she was like, just do it, Clive. Because I could tell he was he's a really insular bloke and didn't kind of want to do it. So he was forced into it. I timed it well with that Tesco trip. And for the next hour and a bit, he sat in the car and we chatted. And what was really obvious to me is that number one, he really didn't, or he still might not really understand just what a hero he is to so many people down here. For him, and he says it like, "Oh, it was just something I once did." And I also kind of got the impression that maybe he doesn't talk about it much because maybe it was a bit hard the way his career ended, and it didn't actually end that well with Charlton, and there was a few in fights about insurance and things like that, and I think he felt he was let down a little bit. So he just, again, similar to me last year, I suppose, removed himself from the situation, hasn't really spoken about it. And obviously living back up in Sunderland and working in the Nissan factory and stuff like that is a sort of weird situation for him. But once he started going, you could tell he could tell he started enjoying it again, and he was happy to talk about it, and he was remembering things that he hadn't spoken about for years, and that was really great. And we did a sort of special edition program with him on the front of it and all this sort of stuff, which was really good. And then fast forward 2018, we played Sunderland on the first game of the season we went up. If you remember, it was a lunchtime kickoff up at the Stadium of Light on Saturday morning. So we stayed up the night before and arranged to go to his house and do the video interview, which is still on Charlton TV now. You can watch it. And that was fantastic. Again, just sitting down with him in person and going through things. And the best part of that was afterwards, after the camera stopped rolling, we were standing in his kitchen and he was talking about various different players and strikers, and he's giving advice and what this player should do and what that player should do. And you could see his football brain was incredible. He was talking about finishing, and he was comparing when he would work with someone like Kevin Lisby and the things that he should have done and he didn't do in certain situations and things like that. And you could see his brain just whirring because he was offered a position of striker coach sort of thing when he retired, obviously all the way back then, and he just wanted to move back up north. But that really makes you think what could have been, because even now you can see his football brain for goal scoring and positioning and all that sort of stuff is incredible. But yeah, just just a bloody legend, really. Like,
yeah, I mean, what a resource. I mean, that you look at people like Carnu, you look at Leeburn, Burstow, like we've had so many players come through. Imagine what they would be if they'd have that as well. Because my thinking was always maybe he was just too natural goal scorer, you know, maybe it's just too much of like, I just knew what to do naturally. It's very hard to coach that. But by the sounds of it, it's just a case of bad timing, mismanaging of the situation at the beginning. I mean, there's no reason he couldn't have started his coaching badges like when he was injured in the Premier League season.
I think so, and I think it would go maybe just coming out of a slightly different era of football where, you know, the big money wasn't there so much, and it just kind of made sense for him just to go live back up north and whatever. I think he does discuss it actually in that interview. I can't remember exactly what he says, but yeah, it is a shame. It is a shame, but hey, it is what it is. We did get him back down again actually for the Legends match we did in.
I was there, yeah, incredible.
2017, I think maybe.
Yeah.
And that was, but he did a bit of commentary with Terry and Greg up in the press box, and he was funny, like,
yeah,
that's his personality, and he was really great. And he didn't take part in the game, but he came and did a penalty shootout at half time. Put a few past, I think it was Bob Boulder probably or something like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, brilliant. Just a really good guy, and it's a shame we can't have him down at the Valley more often, really, because again, this sort of that statue is a sort of statue that could easily be outside the Valley one day.
Yeah.
And
how it's not,
you know.
I mean, I love Sam Bartram. It's great. It's a great statue, but just holding a ball like that, it's not quite as emphatic as that, is it? It's not quite as
probably need a go in as that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say, from that interview and the interviews you did, you were so. What I loved about your interviews, were you so well informed. You obviously do so much research, and but also you've got this sort of fandom that comes through without being a fanboy, if you know what I mean. You seem to have. You can see how much love you've got for these players, and when you're interviewing them. I mean, some of them you watch and you're just like, oh God, I wish I'd thought to ask that. And you get all of those things out of people. So you were absolutely fantastic in that role. And obviously doing slightly different role now, but maybe this is a good time to ask you the question, you know, what did happen? I mean, it seemed like everything was going absolutely smoothly. I mean, I remember the interview you did with Sangard. That was fantastic. And it seemed like everyone was on the right track. And obviously you had the right idea. And then all of a sudden it goes south and Ollie's not there anymore.
I mean, that sort of sums up the Sangard ownership, really, doesn't it? It sort of came in and thought that everything was going to be okay, and then just unravelled very, very quickly. I mean, my situation, just a bizarre one. Like so many, and I wasn't the first one. There was a couple of other people that were just cut loose out of nowhere. Obviously, I'd been there for a lot longer, so it was a lot more difficult legally for the club. I don't think there was any thought for that. Again, as I said to you before, like it's a weird situation because it was a legal situation. I had to sign something in the end and got, you know, the settlement and whatever, which was, I'd rather none of it happened, to be honest, obviously. Yeah. But as part of that, there was all sorts of weird things written in contracts and stuff like that. But now that situation has been removed, Sangard's obviously not there anymore. It's sort of not really an issue. But I mean, long story short, yeah, I was just covering an under-21 game at Welling, funnily enough. And yeah, just got the call saying coming over to the Valley for a chat, got to go over something. And that was from, you know, my line manager. And I just sort of said, oh no, like, it's going to be gone 5 by the time I'm done here. I'm halfway home on the A2, so I'll just give you a call in a car. And it was, no, you got to come. It's urgent, unfortunately. So straight away, you're like, that's weird. And we were talking amongst ourselves in the press box. Like, someone who's died. Like, you're here. Terry's on commentary, so he's okay. And then it sort of started off as a bit of a joke, and then it sort of got a bit more concerning. And then just drove over to the Valley, got taken into the boardroom. They'd left. Sangard and his other half had left 10 minutes before I arrived, which was probably calculated. And yeah. Got told, give us your laptop, give us your pass and go, basically, with very little or no explanation. So yeah, that's what happened, and then still never really had a proper answer or anything like that. So it unravelled from there, and then it was a few months of sort of legal wranglings and stuff. A lot of detail in there, which I won't go through. But finally ended a sort of end of October, November time. That was it. Yeah, that was basically it.
So, I mean, was your plan always, because obviously you went off to Welling following that, and the outpour of support for you, I mean, it was on everything. I mean, obviously, I know you mentioned before, you know, Louis and on Charlton Live, they you know, said, you know, it's such a, obviously they couldn't say certain things, I assume, but, you know, there's a massive outpouring on there, and all of the forums are full of where's Ollie gone, more so than any player I've seen. So it must have, was that quite nice when you're looking at that, or were you completely removed from it all? You didn't?
Yeah, no, that stuff, obviously I was sort of paying attention to. It softened the blow a little bit, because it's nice to get that much support, and through that support, immediately the day after, I you know, had contact from people who were offering up, you know, legal services, and friends of friends who could represent me and all this sort of stuff. So I mean, from that point of view, it was brilliant. But just being able to read stuff, really, just get that support, made it slightly better, made me feel a little bit better at a really difficult time. You know, obviously it was awful. It was I won't sugarcoat it. It was terrible. But yeah, I just sort of had to, that was nice immediately. And then it was just a case of getting my teeth stuck into the legal side of it, really, and getting things sorted out fairly. But also helping, I mean, Welling sort of picked up the phone and asked me to come down there, you know, around the same time. And that was good for me, more from sort of a mental health point of view, really. It was just kept me doing something and sticking around football and doing stuff and being creative and being somewhere else on a Saturday and not having to worry about where I should have been, if that makes sense. So, and that was really good, and they were really supportive, and I'm still helping them out now, Welling, on a lot of their social media stuff, just part-time, just in the evenings, sort of sorting out their tweets for the week and stuff like that. So grateful for them for helping me out at that time.
Yeah, it feels like a breakup, but almost more than that, because it's not a relationship you've had for 10 years professionally. It's a relationship you've had since you were 6. And suddenly this club that you've fallen in love with and seen through good times, bad times, someone else comes along and says, no, you can't be part of this anymore. That must, I think, bring up all the stuff again, but it must be so hard.
That's the hardest part, because it wasn't, you know, just a job to me. That was the second or third part of what it was for me. You know, it was, let's say it was my entire life since the age of sort of 6-7 years old. Like you said there about, you know, the research and stuff I do for interviews and stuff, I didn't really need to do that much research, because I just knew, like, you know, when I was 6, you know, I got this every Christmas. I'd get the previous year's season video VHS tape in my stocking, and I'd watch that to death for the next year. And then so I can still tell you now results from the mid-90s against whoever we played that season and stuff, like, and the goal scorers and how the goal went in and stuff like that, more than I can remember for the last few years, to be honest with you. But so yeah, when, you know, I was that kid that's gonna, a lot of Charlton fans will have the same thing, you know, growing up around South London, you'd pretty much be 1 or 2 Charlton fans in the entire year group or whatever. So you'd be that Charlton guy, and then people I was at school with saw that I was working for the club years later, and they'd comment on Facebook and things like that. Oh yeah, that's really cool. Or, it's a big part of my identity, really. So it was doubly tough, you know, because I could have just stuck 2 fingers on and go, I ain't got to worry about that football club anymore. It didn't want me, that's fine. But again, it wasn't ever about the club. It was about the individuals who owned it at the time. So
did you sort of feel at the time like, this guy's not going to be around forever, I reckon I'll be back there soon? Or was it like, no, that's it, I'm gone, might never go back? Because he was doing weird stuff like that.
I didn't think Sangard would be there forever. No, I knew that was going to end sooner rather than later, because by that point it was already unraveling, and you knew it wasn't going to be a long-term thing from that point, which it didn't. It wasn't even a year by the time he'd gone. So I think, it was just a really weird time, I think. that's all I can really say about it. But I think
I understand.
That's
So the last thing I want to ask, obviously, is that, like when Sangard coming on, we were in such a bad situation that you thought, right, this is it. He's to say he actually put money in his pocket as well, and things that he's done with Charlton Live and Charlton TV, and the women's team. That's some really good work he did, and really set some foundations. And obviously, like I said, coming back off the Range Rover thing with the stuff before with ESI, you probably do buy into it. He wrote a song, for God's sake. Like, he can't be that bad a guy. So when all that's going on, we heard about certain things, certain people going, the secretary went yourself. How much did we know about? Like, I know you can't say, but did we know about like most of it, or 5%, half of it? What was going on really? Or
we know how much of a nutter he was.
in the nicest possible.
I think
cut to the core.
Yeah, I think yeah, I probably shouldn't use that word. Apologies. I think at first, you're coming off a really, really like awful ownership. There's no point in ranking who's worse than who or whatever, but the whole ESI stuff was the most damaging because we were going to die and the club was going to go under. And if it wasn't for COVID, we probably would have done, because of the furlough stuff and whatever happened. And meet like 2 weeks after lockdown happened, didn't it? Since that whole boardroom situation. But it's I think he came in obviously because he was another option and he was a bit of a personality. And because we were in lockdown as well, that is in the stadiums were empty, the stadiums were closed. So it was kind of a weird situation anyway, wasn't it? And fans were removed from it directly. Charlton TV was great. I mean, Charlton TV was sort of an extension of his guitar, really, because it was what he used to show off to his mates back home.
Yeah.
As fantastic as Charlton TV is. And one of the good things that came out of it. Everything else was sort of like, okay, and you sort of roll your eyes and you think, okay, well, he means well.
Yeah.
Which he did at first. Obviously, no one wants to buy a football club and not succeed.
Of course.
It's how you go about it afterwards, and who you put your trust in and who you don't put your trust in, which was sort of one of the bigger problems. So it took a while to unravel. I think when certain people were put in certain positions, with recruitment and even the management of the business side of it, of the Valley and stuff like that, like family members, you kind of then start going, like, we just wait for the next one, basically.
Yeah.
Which was the situation we were in. And things like the guitar, I mean, and the song, the Addicts to Victory song was, I think you don't mind someone having a bit of an ego if you put money into a football club, but then it started getting a little bit like, this is a little bit embarrassing for everyone, for us as a football club, because it's not about the person that owns the club, it's about that. It's about Charlton fans.
It's a really fine balance, because no one wants a Roland again where you've got a chairman who doesn't want anything to do with the club and doesn't even know what's going on. Obviously, you hear from Bowyer and Gallen and stuff that actually that was quite a good time because they just let us get on with it. They didn't have any money.
That is when it worked. That's when the Roland stuff worked best, when he sort of took his hands off. We didn't have a CEO, and it was like, just you people are trusted to just do whatever you want to do, and then that's why that worked, I think, so well. That in that situation, obviously that isn't the best case scenario for a football club at all. You do need governance and you do need leadership from the top, but that was the alternative to what we had before with Roland, where it was too much involvement, I guess. And that 2018-19 season was just lightning in a bottle, where everything was perfect as far as recruitment, and Steve, Gallen, Bo did a fantastic job of getting that team together. But I think even if you ask them at the start of that ask any of us at the start of that season, we wouldn't have predicted how it would have ended, because talk about that Sunderland game, we couldn't fill a bench, could we, up at that first game of the season? We had academy players, who hadn't played yet, like making up those numbers. But then later, by the end of the month, we got Bielik in, we had Cullen in, and those two players alone, we had no idea how good they were going to be, especially Bielik, who'd been previously had a loan spell at Walsall, hadn't really done anything. And then by the end of the season, you knew you had a top-end championship midfield in League One, which is why we went up. And and even when they had their hands tied in the January, we'd lost Carlin, Grant, Josh Parker was the replacement.
Yeah,
and Josh played his part you know, in that promotion, but you know, he wasn't Colin Grant, was he? You know, we still managed to do what we did, you know, against the odds, if you like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a comparison, really. I think, you know, when Thomas then started doing too much, really, and you know, people like, you know, money was spent, but it wasn't spent well. And again, similar to Roland originally, wasn't it? The money was spent, but it was 3/4 of a squad always, and it wasn't missing that 1 or 2 extra bit we needed. And yeah, that was it. But yeah. I think everything that's been said about Thomas has been said, really, I think, by most people. I think
you're right.
It was just a shame. It was just a shame that it went that way. And it got very, I think when it wasn't working, it wasn't fun for him anymore. And that's when lashing out, the blame game was pointed at all sorts of different people for no real reason, when actually a simple look in the mirror would have told him why things were going wrong.
Yeah, if you've got that, you know, that size of business, if you're that type of person, it doesn't help to be self-aware, does it? His ego kind of flew him through. But I'm so fickle. He turned up at the Royal Oak, and I'd left like 10 minutes before. He was playing the guitar. I was like, oh my god, I missed the owner playing. Like that's the kind of Roy of the Rovers, like everyone in it together.
Yeah, although I don't think even Roy. I just think just the guitar thing. I mean, yeah, that we should have known.
Yeah,
I mean, I was one of the first people to hear "Addicts to Victory," and that was a fun afternoon at the Valley. He just appeared to my right in the office and said to me and a colleague, "I need you in a boardroom."
Oh, really?
I'm thinking, oh, is this where I get sacked? And get marched into the boardroom, and he's there with an amp, with his phone or whatever connected to it, speaker. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever seen the boardroom at the Valley, big oak table, huge long thing. So he's at one end, I'm at the other end, opposite my colleague, and he just plays the song. And he's just staring at us. There's only 3 of us in the room, and he's just staring at us, like waiting for a reaction, like an exciting.
What are you doing? You go, yeah.
Well, no, you know when it's like, do not laugh. The worst possible thing you can do is laugh, and all you can think about is not laughing. So I'm sort of taking the song in. I'm trying not to look at the other person that's in the room with me. I don't want to name him; it's not fair. But and then the song finished, and it was just like, well, sort of thing. And in my head, I can't remember exactly what I said, but in my head, I was thinking, say something like, "It's not as bad as it could have been," but don't say that. You know what I mean? Don't say that, because it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was still bad. Like, do you know what I mean? And so I thought this was like a first draft. Like, what's your opinion?
Oh my god!
It wasn't. This was the final. Yeah. Then find out the next day. So I said, yeah, there's probably a few like things lost in translation.
That's it. You're done then. That was it. Right into the wall straight away.
Maybe that's what happened to me eventually, was because of that. But I said the jogging down the line thing's a bit strange, because it doesn't, you know, it's sort of that substitutes. Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't really emphasise. And a clean sheet win's not really a.
You slacked off clean sheet win. I'm still saying it.
I made the point of, you know, there's a few things lost in translation, that maybe it could be this, or maybe it could be that. Without knowing that this was the final thing. This is what it was. And my other suggestion was, like, you know, we could do something with this. We could make this a charity single. We could involve the community trust and make it for the Upbeats. So it goes on iTunes or whatever, and then whatever percentage or all of it goes to the Upbeats. And in my head, I'm saying that because I'm thinking, look, people are going to think this is ridiculous. So people won't be able to slag it off then if it's for charity.
Yeah.
That was put forward, and he also wanted the team to run out to it. So again, red flag, and you try and it happened once. Yeah. And I think listen, after we sort of said, don't do that. But it was pretty embarrassing, really. But yeah, the next day it was like, oh, now it's on Spotify, go get it. It was like, all right, like, too late, not doing the Upbeats thing then.
It's almost like you knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's a shame, because it's another example of, like, you try and help when you try and give advice what could have been a better situation, and that happened. That happened with Roland as well, and Katrine quite a few times, where, you try and help, and you kind of know what's best for the football club, and that's all you ever do. That's all I ever did in my role. It was always thinking what would the fans think, what's best for the fans, what's best for the club. That is, especially in the comms department, that's what your primary thought needs to be, and that's what my primary thought always was. And again, maybe that's why I came unstuck a couple of times, because if you're dealing with egos, I don't want to hear it.
You can't talk truth to power. It's so hard. It's such a hard job to do. Talk truth to power, and you're going to get sacked. And unfortunately, that's part of it. I mean, thing is, you look at him with the guitar and Jacko with the guitar, both around the same time. Like, it doesn't take a lot to go. Like, even Jacko, I was a bit like, oh God, he's so handsome. But
Jacko had fun with it. He was doing it for charity. It was
he's so good. Like,
during COVID, again, he wasn't making it about him. He was just making the best of a bad situation where we were stuck at home, and how he could, keep himself busy and make it helpful. But
I mean, and the thing is, like, as bad as the song was, if it was maybe the third one before they ran out, or on at half time, or like you said, for charity, I think everyone goes, oh fucking hell, all right, go on then, I'll give you a quid or whatever. But it's still why he was so earnest with it.
Yeah. And then it ended up in a tunnel above the door as you run out, and that just appeared one day.
Did it?
And that was a case of, when I used to follow the teams out and put that video out, just before kick off. I used to angle the camera. I used to angle the camera down to avoid it. Not many people really picked up on it being there.
No, I didn't know.
Because it needs to be, this is it's not about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're 40 minutes in. We haven't even started on the team. This has got a 3-hour one coming up, feeling to it. But the one thing I did want to ask you is, you were involved in the team so long, and then you go on the you went on the away trip after we won the league, I believe. Is that right?
Well, we had pre-season. Yeah, we went out to.
Was it Spain?
Yeah, out to Spain. Yeah, I did most of the pre-season tours. Yeah, which were great.
What's that like though? What are the players actually like? That's, as a fan, like, you have this sort of. I've got this idea of what they were like in the 90s when we were watching as kids, and what they're like now. Some of them seem like characters, others doesn't. But are you just like a kid in the cat, for want of a better phrase, kid in a sweet shop type of thing? Like all these players were on holiday. Like, you're not going on the beers, but you're obviously.
It's not a holiday. That's the one thing. I think I used to love doing the pre-season trips. They're hard, they're harder for us than they are for, like, no player will agree with me. But we would, especially in Spain, for example, when it was hot, they'd normally have double sessions. So a session in the morning, session in the afternoon. They're having downtime in between that, chilling out in the rooms, going for a swim, whatever. But we're then collating all the content we got from the morning. And then they have the afternoon session, and they go and do whatever they're going to do. And then we're there till 10 o'clock at night, putting all this content every single day. It's hard work, really hard work. And you might have one. They'll normally have a social evening out, which would be a meal, and then piss up, basically, which was where the players would let their hair down. And certain managers would insist on everyone being involved in that, like including us. You have to be there, no excuses. Like, you have to come for one drink, even if you're not a drinker, as in, like, come for a lemonade or whatever, and then you can go. But so Carl Robinson was like that. So we had pre-season in Dublin, which was pretty good.
Yep, there.
And that was good. An interesting night out in Dublin there with everyone. That's when you get like the curfew. You got to be back by a certain time, and rumours went around the dance floor saying, "Oh, Robbo's extended it till 3 a.m." and which wasn't true. And then one player fell foul of that.
Oh no!
Lee Novak. I can name him because he wasn't around for long, and he's an all right bloke. So Lee Novak fell foul of that. So fast forward to sort of 3 a.m. Me, George Jones, who was my colleague in the team at the time, in the media team at the time, and Lee Novak in the back of a cab, trying to get him back.
Oh my God!
He's throwing up the side of the cab. He's getting. Carl Robinson's waiting in reception, signing people off. So that's right. How do we sneak him back past? I think we managed it from memory. I think we did manage to sneak him in to avoid any fine or anything like that. But that was interesting. And then they were training the next day, I think. So it was one of them. I mean, that happened in Belgium as well, actually, where we played. I went out to Belgium twice. I think we played Genk and we got battered. Again, I think it was our first pre-season game. No expectations. The guy who's on, manager at the time, was absolutely fuming. And so it's supposed to be a night out. Everyone had a night out, and it was going to be the day off the next day. But because we got battered, he decided the following morning that everyone was going to be training no matter what, 9 a.m. on the training field. But half the team had been out since 4 a.m. after the game.
Jesus.
So there was a few players like throwing up on the training pitch. All that sort of thing. Yeah. Different managers treated those pre-season tours, call them tours, not really all in the same place, but there's pre-season trips in different ways. But they were all about, really, they mostly about bonding going away, aren't they, for those ones? Yeah. And I think mostly, but pretty much all those groups during those years were good groups of lads, good players. I think the lower down the leagues you get, really, the more sort of solid those foundations are. Because you say, what's it like going away with those people? They're just normal people mostly. They really are. They're not like footballers get put on pedestals, don't they? I guess because they're heroes for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, they're just normal people doing their job and like a laugh. It's like a school trip, really, when you go there. Those things, and there's rules about where you can sit on the coach and all that sort of stuff, and you got to remember that. But it takes you back to
obviously you're building relationships with them. Do you because I understand like all teams have their WhatsApp groups, and as soon as a player goes, they're out of the WhatsApp group. Do you, as part of the comms team, do you sort of have more license to stay mates with more of the players for longer? And do you build, like, I'm guessing you build really strong relationships with those guys?
Not really. I think when players go, they go, and you sort of wish them well, sort of thing. We don't have that much to do with. Well, I've never really had that much to do outside of, the building with players. Other than, when the stuff happened last year, I did hear from a fair amount of players that left and people like that, which was nice.
Yeah.
But those are the people you'd expect, the ones that are a bit more sort of ingrained in Charlton, like Jacko, Chris Ollie, people like that.
Mm-hmm.
People that have been there for longer. They're the ones you build relationships with, and if you see them further down the line, that's when you'll see people with different clubs or whatever, and you can have a good chat with them and stuff like that.
So that's quite a good point, actually. Time to come on to what happened when you came back. So you come back, is there parades? Are they out in the street? Are everyone clapping you in, that sort of thing, or was
No, not really. There's the squad now. It's very there's not many left. Who
is left? Dobbo? Was Dobbo still there?
Yeah, so Dobbo, Ash, Maynard Brewer. I have to actually look at the squad list to remember. Not many. Terrell Thomas I knew before he came back. So technically him.
I get the academy lads, obviously. Lee Byrne.
Yeah, exactly. The academy lads that come through. But yeah, not many. A lot of them had left sort of midway through this season. The ones that that were there in the couple of years before that. So no parade really at all. Like it's just nice to be back. Staff really, more so really. And Saturday was nice because that was the first I stepped in to help on the club side of stuff, doing my old job basically for the first time since I've been back.
You're now part of the community trust comms. So is a completely different role now? You're not involved at all? Do they cross over? Is it similar?
Yeah, there's crossover. Obviously different in the sense that it's looking after the community stuff. So all the comms around that. So then that's your upbeats, the various different things. I think one of the big things for the new owners is the that relationship with the trust and the club and being more aligned. So it worked perfectly for me because I'd been on both sides of the fence. I'd worked with the guys who at the time were doing the stuff for the trust. So I knew how it worked. I knew what we could potentially do a bit better. So that's been really good. And one of the big things is player appearances, getting players up into schools and to various different bits of video content. Like we filmed a great bit for like walking football for men's health with Ashman Abreu actually last week, and got a really good relationship with Tracy Leeburn, obviously, which makes that easier when we're trying to organise stuff. So, and with the comms guys who are worked with for years and know really well. So yeah, it's sort of doing something slightly different in the same environment, but yeah, really enjoyable. But yeah, on Saturday I was doing what I always did do before. Someone couldn't be there, so I was asked to come and do my old job bit, and that was really nice because that was a situation I didn't think I'd be in again. I think that's what you asked earlier, wasn't it? And I sort of tailed off that, did I think I'd ever be back if the ownership? I think people said that to me, that, oh, you'll be back, and I sort of didn't really want to put anything on that really, but I'm glad I am. And Saturday was the sort of first moment where, despite the result, it was nice being in the car with Greg and Terry and Tom and having that away day banter and mucking about in the press room with Louis and Rich Cooley like we always did, and that was before the game. And then obviously
and it all goes to shit. Yeah,
having a massive McDonald's or whatever on the way home to make ourselves feel better afterwards. Those are the stuff I missed really for the last 18 months was those away days really with those guys. I think our team or the club really is special in that way. I think everyone talks about, oh, our club's special because of this, that, and the other, but Charlton really, really is that. It is, like, when it comes to the fan base and the people that work behind the scenes. Because again, having sort of gotten to know other media teams across the leagues, I never really saw camaraderie like we had, I think, because mostly packed with people who are Charlton fans, like, Greg and Terry commentating, me, George, he's left now, he's gone to Leyton Orient, but we're all Charlton fans. So it meant more when you're going up, and we had such a laugh, like going up and down the country and mucking about in press rooms and probably being quite inappropriate at times, really, after we just battered someone on snapping off them, but it did sometimes. Yeah. And the last thing I'd want in our press room is, Plymouth taking a piss or whatever, and didn't really think about it. We did it all the time. We just had a great day out, like, do you know what I mean? That's what made it so enjoyable, and what makes it so enjoyable, because it's good people who care about the club. So the highs are so high. So Wembley, there were tears from all of us because it was what had happened before and what we'd been through on those long journeys back from Wigan after we'd been beaten on Tuesday night or whatever. To then go to Wembley and get a result like that in the way we did made it extra special because of the people you're around and what it meant to the people you did it with.
Yeah. And that it does seem like that. I've had Greg Stubley on, Louis, yourself, Charlotte. The guys from the comms team really do all speak so highly of the club and the people they work with. And I always just thought, I'm sure every fan thinks that their club's special when it's a family and all that sort of stuff. But it really does seem like there is something special at Charlton, and which again, it kind of not to bring it down again, but it's just such a shame that someone like Roland or Sangard or ESI can come in and just do what they want with it. I've got one more question because we do have to get onto a team, and it's completely my fault. You're not doing anything at midnight, are you? It'll be fine. What do you think? So I know you absolutely can't say. I know you can't, but it does seem like, as badly as this season's gone, the owners do seem to have, I think, personal opinion, their heart in the right place. It seems like they want to spend money. It seems like they want to do the right things. How close am I to the truth there? Am I completely misled, do you think? What's your experience been since they seem like guys?
Pretty good. Like, I mean, you can sort of, it doesn't do any good to just compare and contrast to different owners, but if you do, then it's head and shoulders above what we've had before, simply because they install people in the right places and put their trust in the right people to get things done. So there has that, it is a lot better. It's people who are competent, and obviously we're in a position we're in at the moment. And there's a rebuilding and lessons, I guess, to be learned, like any people coming in to buy the club. And as ever, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, won't it? So it's almost like we need to get this season out of the way, really. Obviously, survive it first and foremost, and then crack on. But yeah, there's no comparison between what I've seen previously and to what we've got now, which makes it more frustrating that we're in the position we're in, because it feels like they're sort of suffering from the culmination of a decade of destruction, really. And it's sort of inevitably going to sort of bottom out before we have to sort of rebuild, which is the job they've got now. But yeah, they're in the right, they're the right people at the right time to do that. I mean, there's certainly no Roland, and there's certainly not Thomas, thankfully. So
I mean, scraping through the season is all I'm hoping for now. It's such a shame, because I look at that January transfer window and I think that's probably the best we've had for maybe since Powell did the rebuild, and even that was in the summer. So to think that it seems like we're in a worse position now than before we started it. But and I don't know what's gone on with the management of Dobbo's deal. I don't know what's gone on with Ladapo and why, like, he was brought in as the main striker. He's not sort of.
I think this is where the management comes in, and Nathan Jones comes in to change the culture of the place. These players have pedigree. That, so it's not about that, is it? It's not about the quality of some of these players that we brought in. It's about getting a tune out of them, which is what a manager's there for. So you get, I think it's fair to say, and again, this is a reflection on the ownership now. I would say that the pool we were shopping in, if you like, for the replacement for Appleton was a lot higher pedigree than what we've seen before with respect to the previous managers. Obviously Nathan's highly regarded. He was a Premier League manager this time last year for a reason. Neil Warnock was mentioned, Gary Rowett, people like that. They're good managers. They are very, very good managers that most clubs wouldn't, you can't turn your nose up at. So that shows that they're willing to sort of back the right person to do it, because that's what it's about now. It's about the culture and getting a tune out of those players that we know can perform at this level, because they've done it. They've won promotions with other clubs. They've scored goals. They've played out their skin. So that's what these next couple of weeks are about, really, aren't they, for Nathan? Yeah,
I mean, it's scary, but well, look, let's get into your team, because otherwise I'm gonna end up talking to you all night. It might make this a two-parter, but yeah, it's absolutely fascinating, and you're in such a unique position in your experience over the last sort of 10-12 years that it's fascinating to hear all about it. And I'd love to do another episode where we just talk about who's the best drinker, who's the best best night out story, those kind of things, but that's for a different podcast. So let's get into your team. Was it hard?
That's it. That is all you're getting for this part one, guys. Join us shortly. It'll be shortly for the second part of Ollie's chat, where we actually get into the players who he's actually chosen. But just thank you so much, Ollie, for coming on. I love that. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I mean, for me as a fan, it's so interesting getting to talk to these people and actually finding out what goes on behind the scenes and actually what those experiences are like. Because until I started doing this channel, all I had to go on was, the rumours, the forums, all that kind of thing. So talking to someone in the know a bit is really exciting. I love it. And like I said, series 2 will be talking to a lot more. But thank you so much. Hope join us back in part 2. We'll be going through Ollie's 1 to 11. It's a pretty solid 11, I'll be honest with you. There's not many in there that I was a bit like, well, I'm not sure about him. Pretty much everyone to a T. And also, this is the reason it went on so long. He's met them all. He's chatted to them all. He's had conversations with them all. So, yeah, we get into pretty much every player in real detail. So I hope you enjoy it, part 2. But look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers. Bye.